Eddie Davenport wasn't an actual lord, but he liked to call himself one. He led the fabulous life of an international playboy and was friends with all kinds of celebrities. But it turned out he was really just the mastermind behind a massive global fraud operation. At least he had a great time doing it. Kate Moss, Prince William, and Prince Harry were frequent guests at the crazy parties he threw at his £30 million mansion. The mansion, 33 Portland Place, is one of the biggest houses in London, a truly magnificent 18th century residence. The inner decor looks like the setting of a ye-old romance novel. While Lord Eddie's scam was still going on, 33 Portland was the most exclusive party destination in the city. It had 8 reception rooms, a billiard room, a club with a jacuzzi, a ballroom, and the only hydraulic wall in London. That means there's a whole wall that can just move up and down. Why? Who knows? But people as wealthy as Lord Eddie can do whatever they want, at least until someone catches them, that is. The mansion was also used for things other than Lord Eddie's parties. Celebrities such as Johnny Depp and Helena Bonham Carter had big photo shoots there. Amy Winehouse shot her music video for the song Rehab there. Parts of the movie The King's Speech were also shot there, as it served as Lionel Logue's clinic. Many believe various adult films were shot in the mansion, although that's less certain. But it wouldn't be out of character for Eddie to let that sort of thing happen at the mansion. After all, he was known for throwing the wildest adult-themed parties in London. Like many high-profile criminals, the law caught up with him rather unexpectedly. Whenever he needed to involve himself directly in his fraudulent business, he would use the fake name James Stewart. Yes, like the actor James Stewart. He must have been a fan. Fire regulators were doing a routine check of his business premises, ensuring everything was up to code. However, while they were looking around, they saw photographs of the man they knew as Mr. Stewart. Only the name on these photographs wasn't Mr. Stewart. It was Edward Davenport. They realized that the guy they had been dealing with was up to something, and they informed the Serious Fraud Office. This bland, scheduled fire check ended up being the start of Lord Eddie's downfall. If Edward wasn't born to actual royalty, where did he come from? It turns out his true origin story is slightly less glamorous. His father, Ormus Neville Talbot Davenport, was a wealthy restaurateur. His mother was Ormus's second wife, Jean. His half-brother from his father's first marriage was a banker and the director of MK Airlines. His family was rich, yes, but they were not royalty. The only real celebrity connection from his early life was that he happened to go to the same school as Nick Mason, the drummer for Pink Floyd. Lord Eddie began his entrepreneurial efforts young. He started selling secondhand clothes on Portobello Road when he was just 15 years old. When he got a bit older, he moved on to a career organizing parties. He started at his own house and then moved on to nightclubs and real venues. In 1986, when he was 20, Eddie stepped up his party business. He co-founded Gatecrasher Limited, a company that organized parties for teenagers at country houses like Longleat and Weston Park. These parties were huge events, sometimes drawing up to 10,000 people at once. Eddie was making £1 million every year at the height of his success at Gatecrasher. The idea behind the company was to let rich teenagers who attended same-sex boarding schools meet members of the other gender. However, meet them translated into meet and drink large amounts of alcohol with them. The parties had a reputation for being pretty crazy. One newspaper described them as being scenes of unbridled lust among upper-class lolitas and public school Lotharios. Gatecrasher met an untimely end that would foreshadow Eddie's later legal troubles. He had to stop throwing the parties because an HM Customs and Excise audit found that Davenport had underpaid his value-added tax bill. Eddie tried to claim that only a tiny percentage of the money he made with entry fees was liable for taxes. Most of it, he tried to claim, was for raffle tickets, a magazine subscription, and postage. The government didn't buy this. Eddie admitted that he'd skirted around the law in court. He was convicted for tax evasion and sentenced to 9 months in jail in 1990. Tatler magazine asked him in an interview what he thought of prison. He said it was boring since there weren't many parties there. His sentence ended up being reduced on appeal to a 9-month suspended term. He only spent 2 weeks in jail, not nearly enough time to learn his lesson apparently. Later, he would say everything happened because he was naive and didn't understand how taxes were supposed to work. Gatecrasher closed down. After Gatecrasher, which had been very successful despite the tax issues, Lord Eddie decided to turn his attention to the world of clubs. He owned a few clubs for a while, but sold them to start a high-end pawnbroking business with offices in Bruton Street. This was not at all call your average pawn shop. He pawned expensive jewelry and luxury cars. It was around this time that he started to call himself Lord. He acquired the manorial title of the village of Gifford in Shropshire and just started to call himself Lord Edward. Having the manorial title didn't really make him a lord, but he was good enough at lying to get away with it. Being a lord wasn't the only thing he would lie about. He claimed to own 25 buildings in the West End of London worth £100 million. He supposedly controlled them through a Monaco-based company called the Davenport Trust. He also claimed to have property in Monaco and Thailand. In 1998, Eddie and a few other men ran into more legal trouble when they ran up an £18,000 bill at a hotel in Scotland during a 5-day New Year's party. The hotel said that they had posed as aristocrats with fake titles. Eddie denied everything and didn't show up to court. He claimed that he couldn't go because he was suffering from kidney failure and couldn't travel because he had to receive dialysis. He continued to have a sketchy relationship with the law after this incident. The police raided his house, and investigators looked into his involvement with 2 property companies that collapsed while still owing millions of pounds. Yet, he somehow evaded legal repercussions. In 1996, Lord Eddie was introduced to Professor Cyril Foray. Foray was the former foreign minister and high commissioner of Sierra Leone during the country's civil war. Eddie got into negotiations with the government of Sierra Leone to refurbish their embassy, which, at the time, was 33 Portland Place. He got a lease on the building, and eventually he claimed the property as his private residence. The government of Sierra Leone sued him, but the case ended up being settled without a clear victor. The British government bought a new building for Sierra Leone, and Lord Eddie got the remainder of the lease. He essentially scammed a war-torn African country out of their London embassy while they were too busy trying not to collapse. The scam would eventually expose Lord Eddie was something called advance fee fraud. He acquired a shelf company, which is a company that exists but doesn't do anything, and called it Gresham Limited. This was so people would think it was connected to Gresham Financial, which was an established and successful company. Eddie told people that his company had been around for years and had a great track record going back to 1958. Eddie would offer loans to companies but then charge them for things he made up, like verification fees. The companies, thinking that it would be worth it because they were getting a big loan from Eddie, would pay him. But then Eddie never gave them the loan. In short, Eddie was being paid to do absolutely nothing. The Lord got £4.5 million from prospective borrowers through his scheme. One notable victim of Eddie's scam was Elizabeth Emanuel, a famous designer who created Princess Diana's wedding dress. She lost her life savings to Lord Eddie after he promised her a loan for £1 million. All she had to do was fork over £5,000. When Eddie came under some scrutiny, he decided to end Gresham. He continued advance fee fraud with Cutting & Company, another shelf company that had been inactive since 2000. Clearly, Eddie was smart enough to know when to get out and start over. Lord Eddie's advance fee scamming days ended when those fire regulators realized that he was not, in fact, James Stewart. But by then, the operation was so big that one arrest wasn't going to wrap up the whole thing. Police raided 19 properties all over England and arrested 5 other people associated with the fake Lord. Eddie was charged with conspiracy to obtain money by deception, conspiracy to commit fraud by false representation, and money laundering. The case ended up going beyond just the advance fee fraud. Eddie was also accused of running a so-called price ramping fraud on a £2.4 million property in London. He artificially increased its price at auction by falsely claiming there was a lease that his company guaranteed. Police also started investigating allegations that Eddie had been running a rent fraud scam with Gresham. The man had his hands in all sorts of scams. He was truly a serial scammer. Over the course of the advance fee fraud, Lord Eddie and his partners had taken $4.5 million in advance fees, and they had never paid out a single cent of the $2 billion in loans they had promised. Lord Eddie was sentenced to 7 years and 8 months in jail. He was also banned from becoming a company director for 10 years in order to pay compensation and legal costs. However, he was let out after just 3 years in jail due to illness. Once again, he managed to weasel his way out of the full sentence. Eddie had to sell 33 Portland Place to pay for his heavy legal fines, but he ended up buying the building right across the street. As soon as he was out, he got right back to hosting huge, wild parties. This has left most people feeling like justice was never really served, and he got away with everything. The prison time he did serve also might not have been all that bad. Lord Eddie claims that he was allowed to eat lobster in his cell due to his special status. Not exactly the typical prison diet. This could just be another lie of his, however. Lord Davenport is still throwing huge parties to this day. His most recent brush with the law was when a bouncer was fatally injured at his New Year's Eve party in 2019. But that never led to anything that got Edward into serious trouble either. It seems as though some people are truly untouchable. Click here to watch one of these next videos. And let us know in the comments section whether or not you would want to party with Lord Davenport, even if you knew he was a scammer.